Imagine if you could completely change your life in just 1 week. Sounds too good to be true, right? But what if I told you that this transformation doesn't depend on a magic formula or quick fixes, but on an ancient set of habits that has stood the test of time? And no, this isn't just another passing trend. The Stoic philosophy, practiced by some of the greatest thinkers in history, offers a clear and simple path to renew your life in just 7 days. The truth is, most people are stuck in patterns of behavior that keep them away from the life they truly want. They struggle with anxiety, stress, and the constant feeling that they're losing control. But what if I told you that these feelings are completely unnecessary, and that the solution to these problems has existed for thousands of years, just waiting to be applied? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can implement these Stoic habits and experience a radical transformation. And the best part, you don't have to wait months or years to see results. With just 1 week of practice, you'll begin to feel the changes. Yes, it's possible. By mastering these habits, you'll learn to handle daily challenges in a completely new way, with more calm, clarity, and focus. Are you ready for this change? Then keep watching and discover how Stoicism could be the key to transforming your life. The journey of personal transformation is often sparked by discomfort. In the case of the narrator, he found himself stuck in a job that drained his energy, dealing with colleagues who made the environment toxic, and facing a relationship that seemed to be going nowhere. This combination of frustrations weighed on him like a constant burden, leaving him feeling trapped in a never-ending cycle. It's an experience many can recognize in their own lives, that moment when it feels like life is stagnant, and change seems like an impossible mountain to climb. He knew something needed to change, but he didn't know how. It was then, amidst the chaos, that the narrator found an unexpected tool for his transformation: Stoicism. Imagine a philosophy that not only helps you face life head-on but also completely transforms the way you react to challenges. It was as if he had found a key that unlocked a new perspective on the world, one he had never considered before. At first, it seemed almost unreal that something so simple could trigger such a profound shift. However, as he began applying these principles to his daily routine, small adjustments in his mindset started to transform his reactions. What seemed like just a slight change in thought turned into a complete life overhaul. The job, once a nightmare, became an opportunity to practice patience and emotional control. His colleagues, rather than sources of frustration, became chances to learn how to handle others' emotions more calmly and evenly. And in his relationship, he discovered that he could only control his own actions and emotions, without trying to change the other person. Thus, Stoicism guided him, step by step, toward a lighter and more fulfilling life. The narrator's introduction to Stoicism was not part of some grand plan. It came to him by chance, as many life-changing discoveries do. One evening, while aimlessly scrolling through YouTube, he stumbled upon a video discussing the philosophy of Stoicism. The idea intrigued him enough to watch the entire video, something that rarely happened. It was as if a new door had opened, and behind it, he found a path he never knew existed. The video was not complex, nor was it filled with grandiose claims, but it struck a chord, offering practical wisdom that resonated deeply. His curiosity piqued. He searched for more content on the topic. That's when he encountered Ryan Holiday, a contemporary philosopher who had dedicated much of his work to modern interpretations of Stoicism. It was through Holiday's book summaries that the narrator truly began to grasp the core principles of this ancient philosophy. What stood out to him was how applicable the teachings were to everyday life. Unlike other philosophies, which often seemed detached from reality, Stoicism offered something real and actionable, something he could implement immediately. At first, it was just about learning. He wasn't yet committed to making any major changes, but the more he read, the more the ideas started to creep into his daily routine. It started with small things, like rethinking how he reacted to stress at work or how he managed disagreements in his personal relationships. The impact of Stoicism was subtle at first, but he quickly realized that it offered a new lens through which he could view his struggles. He began to understand that while he couldn't control every event around him, he could always control his response. One of the most profound moments came when he faced a particularly difficult day at work. Instead of falling into the familiar trap of frustration and resentment, he recalled a Stoic principle: focus on what is within your control. In that moment, he realized that while he couldn't change his boss's behavior or the company culture overnight, he could change how he let it affect his mood. This simple shift in perspective made the day significantly more bearable, and he left the office feeling empowered, rather than drained. The change wasn't instant or miraculous, but it was steady. The more he explored Stoicism, the more he realized how much of his emotional energy had been wasted on things beyond his control. It wasn't just about enduring hardships, but about finding peace amidst the chaos. He realized that Stoicism wasn't some ancient, dusty set of rules, but a living, breathing philosophy that could offer him a sense of agency over his life. He began applying it not just in his professional life, but also in his personal relationships, where misunderstandings had often led to unnecessary conflict. Stoicism also helped him embrace failure in a new way. Instead of seeing setbacks as roadblocks, he started viewing them as opportunities for growth. Each failure became a lesson, something to learn from rather than something to regret. This shift allowed him to take risks more freely, knowing that whatever the outcome, he would gain valuable insight. In a way, Stoicism freed him from the fear of failure, giving him the courage to pursue the changes he had long hesitated to make. The narrator's journey into Stoicism continued as he explored more of Ryan Holiday's work and expanded his knowledge through other authors. But it wasn't just the intellectual pursuit that transformed him, it was the practice. Every day became an opportunity to apply what he had learned. And as he did, the philosophy of Stoicism became less about theory and more about a way of life. It wasn't always easy, and there were days when he slipped back into old habits, but Stoicism gave him the tools to keep moving forward. The next phase of his journey involved diving deeper into the core principles of Stoicism. As he studied more, he found himself drawn to the teachings of ancient philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. The wisdom of these figures, combined with the practicality of modern interpretations, gave him a framework for navigating his personal and professional challenges. But it was only the beginning, as each day revealed new ways to apply these timeless lessons. The narrator's journey into Stoicism didn't stop with a few videos and articles. Once he tasted the power of its principles, he was hooked. He felt a deep hunger to understand the philosophy in greater depth. So, he committed himself to studying Stoicism, diving into over 10 books on the subject. This wasn't a casual interest anymore. It had become a transformative endeavor. Every new book brought fresh insights, but also practical guidance. With each page turned, he felt a growing sense of control over his life, and the chaotic noise of the world started to fade into the background. As he read more, the pieces began to fit together like a puzzle. He wasn't just learning about philosophy, he was learning about himself. Stoicism illuminated the areas of his life where he had been reacting impulsively or letting external circumstances dictate his emotions. Books like The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Meditations by Marcus Aurelius became his go-to resources. These works weren't just dense philosophical texts, they were roadmaps to a calmer, more intentional existence. And with each new insight, he felt the grip of stress and anxiety loosening. He remembered one particularly stressful day at work, when deadlines piled up and tensions ran high. Instead of letting the pressure consume him, he paused, recalling the Stoic principle of focusing only on what is within your control. That day, he made a conscious decision to take a deep breath, prioritize his tasks, and let go of the rest. Surprisingly, the world didn't collapse, and he found himself handling the workload more efficiently. It was a small victory, but it confirmed for him that Stoicism was more than just theory. It was a practical tool for navigating life's challenges. His studies deepened his understanding of Stoic principles like emotional resilience, the importance of virtue, and the power of mindfulness. He became fascinated by how this ancient philosophy addressed modern problems like stress, anxiety, and societal pressure. Stoicism, it turned out, wasn't just about enduring hardships. It was about thriving in a world that often felt out of control. As he continued to apply these teachings in his daily routine, he noticed significant changes, not only in how he managed stress but also in how he related to others and approached difficult conversations. He shared the story of a particularly tense argument with a close friend. In the past, he would have reacted emotionally, driven by the need to be right. But armed with Stoic wisdom, he took a step back, asked himself what was truly within his control, and responded with patience and understanding. The result? The argument de-escalated, and their friendship grew stronger. It was a powerful reminder that Stoicism wasn't just about controlling one's emotions, but also about improving relationships by leading with empathy and self-awareness. The more he studied, the more the narrator realized that Stoicism wasn't just a tool for surviving life's storms. It was a guide for finding peace and meaning amidst them. Through his studies, He discovered that the true power of Stoicism lies in its ability to cultivate inner tranquility, even when external chaos is unavoidable. This inner peace, once a fleeting concept, became something he could actively nurture, day by day, through intentional practice and reflection. At times, the study of Stoicism felt overwhelming. With so many principles and teachings to absorb, it was easy to get lost in the complexity of it all. But instead of feeling discouraged, he turned to one of the key tenets of Stoicism: the importance of continuous learning and growth. Stoicism teaches that wisdom is not something you acquire overnight. It's a lifelong pursuit. The narrator embraced this mindset, approaching each day as an opportunity to practice and refine his understanding of the philosophy. This ongoing study of Stoicism became a cornerstone of his personal transformation. Through books, lectures, and reflections, he built a foundation of resilience that helped him navigate life's ups and downs with greater ease. But his journey was far from over, and as he continued to explore the depths of Stoicism, he found new ways to apply its principles to every aspect of his life. And with each step forward, he felt the weight of the world lifting from his shoulders, replaced by a growing sense of purpose and clarity. At the heart of Stoicism lies a simple yet profound concept: focus on what is within your control, and let go of what isn't. This principle has become the narrator's guiding light. The realization that much of what causes anxiety, other people's opinions, external events, or unpredictable outcomes, was out of his control brought a sense of relief. Instead of being consumed by worry about these external forces, he shifted his attention to what he could change: his thoughts, his actions, and his choices. This shift empowered him in ways he hadn't imagined. One key teaching in Stoicism is that our power lies in how we respond to situations, not in the situations themselves. For example, a missed promotion at work could spiral someone into frustration, but the Stoic approach encourages focusing on how to react constructively. The narrator took this to heart. After facing disappointment at work, instead of letting resentment build, he used the setback as motivation to improve his skills and seek out new opportunities. This response was liberating because it shifted the power back to him, allowing him to grow rather than being held back by circumstances beyond his control. Another principle that resonated with him was the idea of accepting what life throws your way with grace. The Stoics teach that while we cannot control what happens, we can control how we perceive and react to it. It's about learning to see challenges not as obstacles but as opportunities for growth. The narrator began to practice this mindset shift in his daily life. Whether dealing with difficult people or unexpected setbacks, he would ask himself, "How can I grow from this?" This question transformed his outlook and, over time, made him more resilient to life's inevitable ups and downs. Emotions are another aspect of Stoicism that the narrator found transformative. Stoicism doesn't advocate for the suppression of emotions, but rather for understanding and managing them. The principle of observing emotions without letting them control your actions became crucial for him. In heated moments, whether at work or in his personal life, he learned to take a step back, process the emotion, and then choose a calm, thoughtful response. This not only reduced unnecessary conflict, but also helped him feel more in control of his emotional landscape. The Stoics also place great emphasis on virtue. Living in accordance with values like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline became central to the narrator's approach to life. He realized that while external achievements could be taken away, jobs, relationships, material wealth, virtue was something internal, something no one could strip from him. By focusing on living a virtuous life, he felt a sense of fulfillment that external accomplishments alone could never provide. It gave him a deeper purpose, one that wasn't dependent on the validation or judgment of others. One of the most liberating concepts he encountered was the idea of a more fatty, loving one's fate. The Stoics encourage embracing everything that happens in life, the good and the bad, as necessary parts of our journey. This doesn't mean passively accepting misfortune, but rather finding meaning and growth in it. The narrator adopted this mindset during challenging moments, like when he faced health issues. Instead of lamenting his misfortune, he chose to see it as an opportunity to strengthen his resolve and appreciate life's fragility. Stoicism also taught him to detach from outcomes. Instead of being fixated on whether things went his way, he learned to focus on the process. This shift helped him alleviate the constant pressure of achieving specific results and instead enjoy the journey itself. Whether it was a project at work or personal goals, he focused on giving his best effort, knowing that the outcome was largely out of his hands. This detachment from results not only reduced his stress but also improved his overall well-being. One of the more practical lessons the narrator embraced was the idea of memento mori, remembering that we are mortal. Far from being morbid, this Stoic practice reminded him to live fully in the present, knowing that life is finite. It pushed him to prioritize what truly mattered, like spending quality time with loved ones or pursuing meaningful work. This perspective added urgency to his actions, but in a positive, motivating way. It encouraged him to make the most of each day without getting bogged down by trivial concerns. A common misunderstanding about Stoicism is that it promotes apathy, but the narrator quickly learned that this was far from the truth. Stoicism, at its core, is about engagement with the world, just in a more thoughtful, deliberate way. Instead of being ruled by passions or whims, the narrator became more intentional in his decisions. Whether it was a major life choice or a simple daily task, he asked himself if it aligned with his values and if it was within his control. This led to a more focused, purposeful life, one driven by his own principles rather than external expectations. The principle of equanimity, remaining calm and composed in the face of adversity, became another key lesson. Through Stoicism, the narrator learned that while chaos might surround him, he could always choose to maintain his inner calm. This wasn't about suppressing feelings, but about cultivating a state of mind that wasn't easily disturbed by external events. Whether dealing with a sudden crisis at work or a personal setback, he practiced staying grounded, focusing on what he could control, and letting go of the rest. This calm approach made him more effective in solving problems and reduced the emotional toll of stressful situations. Another critical aspect of Stoicism is the emphasis on self-discipline. The narrator found that by practicing restraint, whether it was avoiding impulsive reactions or resisting the temptation to indulge in distractions, he gained more control over his life. Self-discipline, he realized, was the foundation of freedom. The more he practiced it, the less he was at the mercy of external circumstances. This sense of control gave him the confidence to face challenges head-on, knowing that his response was entirely within his power. The Stoic concept of focusing on the present moment also played a pivotal role in his transformation. Instead of dwelling on past regrets or anxiously worrying about the future, the narrator learned to ground himself in the now. This practice of mindfulness not only reduced his stress but also heightened his appreciation for the simple joys of life. He found peace in the present moment, whether it was during a walk in nature, a conversation with a friend, or even in moments of solitude. Stoicism, in this sense, brought him closer to life, rather than distancing him from it. As his understanding of Stoicism deepened, the narrator realized that the philosophy wasn't just about personal improvement, it was about contributing to the greater good. The Stoics believed in the interconnectedness of all people and the importance of living in harmony with others. This led him to reflect on how his actions impacted those around him. He became more mindful of his relationships, striving to act with kindness, fairness, and generosity, even when it wasn't easy. This focus on community, combined with personal growth, became the bedrock of his Stoic practice. Finally, the principle of accepting impermanence became a powerful tool for navigating life's uncertainties. Stoicism teaches that everything in life is transient: our possessions, our relationships, even our bodies. Rather than fearing this truth, the narrator learned to embrace it. By accepting that nothing lasts forever, he freed himself from the constant anxiety of trying to hold on to things that were beyond his control. This acceptance brought him peace, allowing him to cherish the present without clinging to it. Stoicism is not just a philosophy to ponder. It's a set of practical tools designed for everyday use. The narrator quickly learned that Stoicism could be applied in even the smallest moments of life. One of the most impactful tools was the concept of journaling, a daily practice that allowed him to reflect on his thoughts, actions, and challenges. Each morning, he would write down what he hoped to achieve that day, aligning his goals with Stoic principles. At night, he would review his day, asking himself whether he lived according to his values and how he handled situations that tested his composure. Another tool that became essential was the practice of negative visualization. The Stoics taught that imagining worst-case scenarios helps prepare the mind for adversity, making it less likely to be shaken when difficulties arise. The narrator used this technique before important meetings or when facing potential conflicts. By visualizing what could go wrong, he found himself less anxious and more composed. This practice didn't make him pessimistic, but rather gave him the emotional resilience to handle whatever came his way without being blindsided. Stoicism also emphasizes the importance of controlling one's inner dialogue. The narrator learned to become more aware of the thoughts that ran through his mind, particularly during stressful situations. Instead of allowing negative, defeatist thoughts to take root, he practiced reframing them in a more stoic light. For example, if something didn't go as planned, instead of thinking, "This is a disaster," he would remind himself, "This is outside of my control, but I can control my response." This mental shift became a cornerstone of his Stoic practice, helping him navigate challenges with greater clarity and calmness. The narrator also adopted the practice of mindfulness, though Stoicism approaches it differently than other philosophies. For the Stoics, mindfulness isn't about escaping the present moment but about fully engaging with it. The narrator began to approach each task, whether big or small, with full attention and intention. Whether it was a difficult conversation, a workout, or even a mundane chore, he made an effort to be fully present, recognizing that this moment was the only one within his control. This heightened sense of awareness not only improved his performance but also brought more peace and satisfaction into his daily life. Stoicism provided him with a powerful tool for decision-making: the dichotomy of control. This simple yet profound concept states that we should only concern ourselves with what we can influence, letting go of everything else. When faced with difficult decisions, the narrator would break down the situation into two categories: what was within his control and what wasn't. This clarity helped him avoid wasting energy on things he couldn't change, like other people's opinions or unpredictable outcomes. Instead, he focused on what he could do, making decisions with a clear mind, free from unnecessary worry. Another practical application of Stoicism was learning to manage stress more effectively. Instead of being overwhelmed by stress, the narrator began to see it as a signal, an opportunity to practice Stoic principles. He started using techniques like deep breathing, taking a step back from the situation, and mentally rehearsing how a Stoic sage might handle it. These small actions helped him regain composure quickly, even in high-pressure environments. Over time, he found that stressful situations no longer had the same grip on him. By changing how he perceived stress, he transformed it from something debilitating into a tool for personal growth. Stoicism also gave him a framework for seeking happiness, not in fleeting pleasures but in lasting contentment. The Stoics believed that true happiness comes from living in accordance with one's values and virtues. The narrator embraced this idea by focusing less on external achievements and more on internal fulfillment. He found joy in small, meaningful actions, like helping a friend or staying true to his word, rather than chasing material success or approval. This shift in perspective brought him a sense of happiness that was more stable and less dependent on external circumstances. One of the most practical tools he embraced was voluntary discomfort. The Stoics believed that by occasionally subjecting oneself to discomfort, a person could strengthen their resilience and appreciate life's comforts more fully. The narrator applied this by challenging himself in small ways, like taking cold showers, fasting, or going without certain luxuries. These practices weren't about self-punishment but about cultivating mental toughness and gratitude. By embracing discomfort, he found that he could face life's inevitable hardships with greater ease, knowing that he had already built up his tolerance for adversity. Another tool that helped him apply Stoicism in daily life was practicing gratitude. While it might seem counterintuitive to a philosophy focused on resilience, gratitude plays a crucial role in Stoicism. The narrator began to make a habit of reflecting on what he was thankful for, even in the midst of challenges. This practice shifted his focus away from what was lacking and toward what was already abundant in his life. By appreciating the good in each day, he found it easier to maintain a positive outlook, even when things didn't go as planned. A practical tool the narrator used regularly was the pause, a momentary break before reacting to any situation. When faced with anger, frustration, or anxiety, he learned to pause, take a breath, and reflect before responding. This simple act of pausing allowed him to choose his reactions more wisely, avoiding impulsive decisions that might lead to regret. The pause became a powerful way to practice Stoic control over his emotions, helping him stay grounded and centered in the face of daily challenges. Along with these tools, the narrator integrated the Stoic practice of daily affirmations into his routine. Each morning, he would remind himself of the values he aimed to live by: courage, wisdom, temperance, and justice. This daily ritual helped set the tone for his day, keeping him focused on what truly mattered. It wasn't just about motivating himself, but about aligning his actions with his deeper sense of purpose. These affirmations became a way for him to ground himself in Stoic principles, ensuring that each day was a step toward living more fully in accordance with his values. Another practical tool he found useful was the Stoic practice of reflection at the end of each day. Before bed, he would take a few minutes to think about how he lived that day, whether he stayed true to his values, how he handled difficult situations, and what he could improve tomorrow. This reflection wasn't about self-criticism but about growth. It gave him the space to acknowledge his successes, learn from his mistakes, and commit to doing better the next day. This simple habit of daily reflection helped him continuously refine his practice of Stoicism, turning each day into an opportunity for growth. Finally, the narrator found that the practice of simplifying his life was another valuable Stoic tool. Stoicism teaches that much of what we chase in life, wealth, status, approval, isn't necessary for true happiness. The narrator began to declutter not just his physical space but also his mental and emotional life. He let go of unnecessary possessions, toxic relationships, and unrealistic expectations. By focusing on what truly mattered, he found more peace, clarity, and freedom in his daily life. Personal renewal through Stoicism is about more than just improving habits. It's about aligning your life with a set of deeper values and virtues. The narrator found that Stoicism offered a path to renewing not just his mind but his entire way of living. At its core, Stoicism encourages living in accordance with virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. For the narrator, this meant rethinking how he approached his career, relationships, and even his leisure time. He began to focus on living with intentionality, ensuring that every action, no matter how small, aligned with his values. This shift was not instantaneous, nor was it easy. Personal renewal requires letting go of old habits that no longer serve you. The narrator had to confront some difficult truths about himself: his impatience, his tendency to react impulsively, and his focus on external achievements rather than inner growth. But Stoicism gave him the tools to work through these challenges. He began to replace old, destructive habits with new, constructive ones. Instead of reacting with frustration when things didn't go his way, he learned to pause, reflect, and choose a more virtuous response. One of the most important aspects of personal renewal is the process of self-reflection. The narrator found that through regular self-reflection, he could measure his progress and identify areas where he still needed to grow. He would ask himself questions like, "Am I living in alignment with my values?" And "How can I respond better to life's challenges?" This constant process of introspection helped him stay on track and reminded him that personal growth is a lifelong journey, not a destination. It wasn't about achieving perfection but about making progress every day. Renewal also meant rethinking how he dealt with adversity. Instead of viewing obstacles as setbacks, he began to see them as opportunities to strengthen his character. Stoicism teaches that adversity is a chance to practice virtues like patience, resilience, and courage. The narrator embraced this mindset, using every challenge as a way to grow. Whether it was a difficult work project, a personal disagreement, or even his own inner struggles, he approached each situation with the question, "How can I grow from this?" This shift in perspective transformed how he handled difficulties, making him more resilient and adaptable. As part of his personal renewal, the narrator began to focus on the importance of gratitude. Stoicism emphasizes appreciating what you have rather than constantly striving for more. The narrator incorporated daily gratitude practices into his routine, taking time each morning to reflect on the things he was thankful for. This simple practice had a profound impact on his mindset. It helped him cultivate a sense of contentment and peace, even in the midst of life's challenges. Gratitude became a powerful tool for staying grounded and focused on what truly mattered. Personal renewal also meant reevaluating his relationships. Stoicism teaches that we should surround ourselves with people who inspire us to live virtuously. The narrator took this to heart, reassessing the relationships in his life. He realized that some friendships were draining his energy and pulling him away from his values, while others supported his growth and encouraged him to become a better person. With this realization, he made the difficult decision to distance himself from toxic relationships and invest more time in the people who aligned with his Stoic principles. Another key aspect of personal renewal is setting boundaries. The narrator learned that Stoicism isn't about saying yes to everything but about having the wisdom to say no when necessary. He began to set boundaries in his personal and professional life, recognizing that overcommitting himself only led to burnout and resentment. By learning to say no to things that didn't align with his values, he found more time and energy for the things that truly mattered. This practice of setting boundaries allowed him to live a more focused, intentional life. Renewal through Stoicism also involves a shift in how we approach goals. Instead of chasing external achievements, the narrator learned to focus on internal growth. He began setting goals that were aligned with his values, like becoming more patient, developing emotional resilience, or strengthening his relationships. These goals weren't about achieving external success, but about becoming a better version of himself. This shift in focus brought a sense of fulfillment that external accomplishments could never provide. Stoicism also taught him the importance of detaching from outcomes. Instead of being fixated on whether things went his way, he learned to focus on the process itself. This detachment helped him let go of the need for constant validation or success, allowing him to enjoy the journey rather than being consumed by the destination. Whether it was a career goal, a personal project, or even a relationship, he learned to invest fully in the process, knowing that the outcome was beyond his control. One of the most powerful aspects of personal renewal is the realization that it's never too late to change. Stoicism teaches that every day is an opportunity to start fresh, to make new choices, and to become a better person. The narrator embraced this idea, recognizing that no matter how many mistakes he had made in the past, he always had the power to choose differently in the present. This sense of empowerment fueled his commitment to personal renewal, knowing that his growth was entirely within his control. Renewal also involved simplifying his life. Stoicism encourages us to let go of what is unnecessary and focus on what truly matters. The narrator began decluttering not just his physical space but also his mental and emotional space. He let go of material possessions that didn't add value to his life, as well as mental clutter, like worrying about things beyond his control. This simplification brought a sense of clarity and peace, allowing him to focus more on the things that truly mattered. Another important aspect of personal renewal is accepting impermanence. Stoicism teaches that everything in life is temporary: our possessions, relationships, and even our own lives. Rather than fearing this reality, the narrator learned to embrace it. By accepting the transient nature of life, he found more peace and contentment in the present moment. This acceptance allowed him to let go of attachments and live more fully, knowing that nothing was permanent and that each moment was precious. Personal renewal through Stoicism is an ongoing process. It's about continuously reflecting on your life, making adjustments, and aligning your actions with your values. For the narrator, this meant not just adopting Stoicism as a philosophy but living it every day. Each moment, each decision, became an opportunity to practice the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. And while the journey was far from easy, it brought a sense of fulfillment and purpose that transformed his life in ways he had never imagined. One of the most powerful lessons the narrator learned from Stoicism was the idea that adversity is not something to be avoided but embraced. Stoicism teaches that challenges are opportunities for growth, much like fire purifies gold. The narrator began to see his difficulties, whether they were personal, professional, or emotional, not as setbacks, but as tools for building resilience. Each hardship became a moment to practice the Stoic virtues of patience, courage, and wisdom. Instead of asking, "Why me?" he began to ask, "What can I learn from this?" This mindset shift had a profound impact on how he handled life's inevitable struggles. In the past, a difficult day at work or a personal conflict might have left him feeling overwhelmed and defeated. But with Stoicism as his guide, he learned to approach adversity with a calm, focused mindset. Rather than letting challenges break him down, he used them as stepping stones to grow stronger. For instance, during a particularly tense period at work, instead of crumbling under pressure, he reminded himself that stress was a natural part of growth and that the way he responded to it would determine his success. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. This was a lesson the narrator applied every time he faced a difficult situation. Whether it was a personal loss, a financial setback, or a conflict with a loved one, he reminded himself that his power lay in his response. By focusing on what he could control, his actions, his mindset, and his perspective, he found that he could navigate even the toughest situations with grace and resilience. This inner strength became his anchor, helping him weather storms that would have once overwhelmed him. The metaphor of adversity as fire that purifies gold became a guiding image for the narrator. Every challenge, no matter how painful or daunting, was seen as a refining process, a chance to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. This perspective not only helped him endure hardships but also made him more proactive in seeking out challenges. Rather than avoiding difficult situations, he began to view them as essential to his growth. He sought out opportunities that would test his limits, knowing that each challenge would make him better equipped to handle whatever life threw his way. The narrator's journey with Stoicism also led him to understand the importance of embracing discomfort. Stoicism teaches that by voluntarily exposing ourselves to discomfort, we build the mental and emotional toughness needed to face life's inevitable challenges. The narrator began to incorporate small acts of discomfort into his daily routine, taking cold showers, fasting, or pushing himself harder during workouts. These practices weren't about self-punishment but about building resilience. By choosing discomfort in controlled settings, he became more capable of handling the unexpected difficulties that life presented. Another key principle of Stoicism that helped the narrator build resilience was the concept of amor fati, or love of fate. Stoicism teaches that we should embrace everything that happens to us, good or bad, as necessary parts of our journey. This wasn't about passivity or resignation. It was about finding meaning in every experience, even the painful ones. The narrator adopted this mindset, especially during moments of adversity. Instead of resisting or resenting his struggles, he chose to see them as opportunities for growth. This shift in perspective allowed him to face life's challenges with a sense of acceptance and even gratitude. Resilience, as the narrator learned through Stoicism, is not about being unshakable or invulnerable. It's about being adaptable, about bending without breaking. Stoicism gave him the tools to cultivate this adaptability. When faced with unexpected challenges, instead of trying to force a specific outcome or resist the situation, he learned to adjust his approach. He embraced the idea that sometimes the best response is to go with the flow, to adapt to circumstances rather than fighting against them. This flexibility became a core part of his resilience, allowing him to navigate life's twists and turns with ease. Stoicism also taught the narrator that resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build over time, through practice and reflection. Each time he faced adversity, he saw it as an opportunity to strengthen his resilience. He reflected on how he handled the situation, what he could have done better, and how he could apply the lessons learned in the future. This constant process of reflection and improvement became a key part of his personal growth. Over time, he noticed that challenges that once felt overwhelming became more manageable, and his confidence in his ability to handle adversity grew. A major part of building resilience is learning to detach from the outcome. Stoicism teaches that while we can control our efforts, we cannot control the results. The narrator embraced this principle, particularly when facing challenges. Whether it was a tough project at work, a personal goal, or a difficult conversation, he focused on doing his best, knowing that the outcome was largely out of his hands. This detachment from results allowed him to approach challenges with a clear, calm mind, free from the anxiety of needing things to go a certain way. It was a liberating mindset that gave him the freedom to take risks and face challenges head-on. Finally, Stoicism taught the narrator that resilience is not just about surviving adversity but thriving because of it. It's about using life's challenges as fuel for growth and transformation. Each setback, each difficulty, became an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The narrator no longer feared adversity. He welcomed it as a necessary part of his journey. And with each challenge he faced, his resilience grew, turning him into a person who not only endured life's storms but emerged from them stronger and more grounded than ever before. The narrator's battle with addiction, particularly alcoholism, was one of the most difficult challenges he ever faced. It nearly destroyed his life, affecting his health, relationships, and career. For years, he found himself trapped in a cycle of dependency, using alcohol as an escape from the pressures of life. Each time he tried to quit, the weight of his problems felt too heavy, and he would fall back into old patterns. However, when he discovered Stoicism, he found the strength and clarity he had been searching for to break free from the grip of addiction. One of the first lessons that Stoicism taught him was the importance of self-control. Stoicism emphasizes mastery over one's desires and impulses, and this concept resonated deeply with the narrator as he began to confront his addiction. He realized that, for so long, he had allowed external circumstances, stress, frustration, and even boredom, to dictate his actions. Alcohol had become his crutch, something he turned to whenever life became overwhelming. But through Stoicism, he learned that true strength comes from within, and that the only person who could control his actions was himself. The narrator began to apply Stoic principles in his journey to sobriety, starting with the idea of focusing only on what he could control. He couldn't control his cravings or the social pressures that surrounded him, but he could control how he responded to them. Instead of fighting his addiction head-on and overwhelming himself with the thought of quitting forever, he broke the process down into smaller, manageable steps. Each day, he focused on making the decision not to drink, knowing that he only needed to control his actions in the present moment. This daily commitment helped him regain control over his life. One of the most transformative Stoic practices the narrator adopted was negative visualization. Instead of avoiding the thoughts of what might happen if he continued drinking, he confronted them head-on. He would visualize the worst-case scenario, losing his job, alienating his family, or even ruining his health permanently. This practice wasn't about scaring himself, but about gaining clarity on the stakes of his addiction. By confronting the potential consequences, he strengthened his resolve to make better choices, reinforcing his commitment to sobriety each time he faced a temptation. Another important Stoic concept that helped the narrator in his journey was the idea of accepting discomfort. Stoicism teaches that we should not fear pain or discomfort but embrace it as a part of life. The process of quitting alcohol was far from easy. There were moments of physical withdrawal, emotional turmoil, and intense cravings. But instead of running from this discomfort, the narrator learned to sit with it, accepting it as part of his path to healing. Over time, he began to see each moment of discomfort not as a barrier but as an opportunity to strengthen his resilience. The narrator also learned to detach from the identity of being an addict. Stoicism teaches that we are not defined by our past or our circumstances, but by how we choose to respond to them. For years, the narrator had internalized the label of an addict, believing that he was powerless to change his situation. But Stoicism helped him reframe his mindset. He wasn't an addict. He was a person who had made choices that led to addiction, and he could make new choices that led to freedom. This shift in identity empowered him to take control of his life and redefine who he wanted to be. A crucial part of the narrator's recovery was developing self-compassion, something he learned through Stoicism's emphasis on virtue. He realized that overcoming addiction wasn't just about willpower or strength. It was about cultivating virtues like patience, humility, and self-discipline. There were days when he stumbled, where he gave into old habits or struggled to stay sober. But instead of beating himself up, he used these moments as opportunities for growth. Each slip-up was a reminder to recommit to his values and continue on the path of self-improvement. The narrator's journey to overcoming addiction also involved a re-evaluation of his relationships. Stoicism teaches that we should surround ourselves with people who support our pursuit of virtue and growth. The narrator realized that many of the people in his life were enablers, encouraging behaviors that kept him stuck in his addiction. With Stoic clarity, he made the difficult decision to distance himself from these toxic influences and instead sought out a support system that encouraged his sobriety and personal development. This shift in his social circle played a key role in his continued success. Another powerful tool the narrator used in his recovery was gratitude. Stoicism teaches that we should be grateful for what we have, even amidst hardship. The narrator began practicing daily gratitude, reflecting on the things he was thankful for: his health, his family, and the progress he had made in his recovery. This practice shifted his focus away from what he had lost due to his addiction and toward what he still had to fight for. Gratitude became a source of strength, reminding him that there was so much worth staying sober for. Finally, Stoicism gave the narrator a framework for long-term resilience. Addiction recovery is a lifelong journey, and Stoicism provided him with the tools to maintain his sobriety even when challenges arose. He embraced the Stoic practice of daily reflection, continuously assessing his actions and staying mindful of his triggers. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but Stoicism had taught him that true strength comes from facing adversity with courage, patience, and wisdom. With these principles as his guide, he found the peace and freedom he had long sought. Now that you're familiar with Stoic habits and have seen how they can transform your life, the question is, are you ready to apply them? Theory alone doesn't bring change. It's the constant practice that makes all the difference. So, how about starting right now? Which habit will you adopt first? Will it be focusing on what you can control? Or maybe the daily practice of gratitude? Whatever it is, the important thing is to take the first step. Think about the difficult situations you've faced recently. How would they have been different if you had applied Stoic principles? Would you have felt calmer, more in control? Remember, change doesn't happen overnight, but with consistency, the results will be inevitable. You don't need to wait for a big event to start. The transformation begins today, with simple decisions and small daily actions. If you want to continue on this path of self-discovery and growth, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll stay updated with all our content on how to use Stoicism and other philosophies to improve your life. Don't miss out on this opportunity. The more you apply these teachings, the faster you'll see the change you've been seeking.